Okay, well, hello again, friends. If you are watching, thanks for joining me. This is a turn up for the books. It's been a long time since I have not flown on VATSIM. I remember getting World Traffic 3 a while back to try and populate the skies before I was that interested on VATSIM. So, real turn up. But this is Explain 11.5. Vulkan is on and is running, and as you can see, I'm going to leave the frame rate counter running for the whole stream. There is a huge difference, absolutely huge difference with this on. So much so that I've turned the anti-aliasing up all the way to the max, whereas before we'd struggle to get past about 2 or 4 times. So I think the GPU's being better utilised, and as you can see from the frame counter there, that's starting to limit. So I might have to turn it down, but we'll see how we get. I mean, I say limiting, but GPU running at 235, is giving the sim 40 frames a second, whereas before it was really heavily impacting on CPU. So, yeah, and this is Cork, where we came into the other day after one of the longest sector trips I've done. And the weather is pretty sketchy. I'm sat at home in England, and the weather is glorious. It is properly severe cav-OK outside, so this is a real turn-up. As we're not flying on VATSIM, I don't have a printed copy of the OFP, so I'll be bringing that up on screen to actually use it. And we're off to Liverpool just because it's a nice short sector. Ortho is on, so hopefully you'll be able to see that a bit better when we get there. And I am still running on virtual Ryanair, so this is still a virtual Ryanair trip. It's just not online, which feels pretty strange, to be honest. So I'm going to start smart cars for that, and then we'll sort everything else out in a moment. If you are watching, as always, please like, please sub, get notified. I know this one was pretty short notice, and if you are watching, please say hi in the chat and we can have a little chat. One of the reasons I wanted to go into Liverpool was to have a look at procedural approaches. We're probably not going to fly them by hand, but certainly I know quite a lot of people don't fly online, and they just go from point A to point B, and this should replicate that a little bit better and give you an idea of I'll certainly get the charts up and we can have a look at the arrivals into Liverpool, give you an idea of what to do. It doesn't the arrivals into Liverpool they don't get you actually to the airfield, and they don't necessarily get you directly to an approach. So what do we do, especially if it's like this and the weather is awful, which I don't think it will be in Liverpool, but I haven't looked at the weather. So it gives us an opportunity to do that without having to worry about ATC or messing anyone else up. So, bit of a long intro, me just waffling for 4 minutes. Let's get into the aeroplane, get set up, and then we'll think about getting going. So, as always, oh, wrong window, so let's get back onto the screen. As always, into the cockpit, cold and dark. All I've done is set the lights up and sort the hardware out. So first things first, we are going to pop the battery on. Emergency exit lights. The lights are already on, steady. And, sorry, I'm just turning my monitor brightness up so I can actually see. Okay, that's a bit better. AC power from the ground power comes on. Happy days. So, as always, without further ado, let's get the IRSs aligned. As I always say, this is not a full cold and dark setup, but it will do enough to get you going. There's IRSs aligning. Your damper can come on. Ooh. Now we're upside down again. Crossfeed check. open, bright, dim, close, bright and off. Pop one of the pumps on for the APU. Power, we are on ground. Cabin use and LIFFY are on. Don't need to worry about the monitoring. Belts and crew are off. First start, ignition, igniters to right. Cabin diff is 0. And the altitude at Cork is 502, so you can just see the bottom of the cabin out pointer there, which will be pointing just at 500, but unless it starts to get anywhere near 1,000, you're not going to see it. Pumps can go on. Window heat can come on. Pop the trim air on, set the cabin up. Pax auto. APU bleed is on our cruise 270 today. It's relatively low. And it's a little bit of an interesting routing that SimBrief gave us, which is a little bit unnecessarily longer than I thought. So we'll have a look at that. En route, we are off to Liverpool, which is pretty low, 81 feet. So we'll call it 100. That's the overhead done. So let's check we've got hydraulic pressure, which we do. Config warning horn works. We can set order brakes to RTO. Light comes on and goes off. Not sure what we'll need to start with, so we can turn those off. Nothing to do with the MCP yet. The altitude is set to an odd number to remind us that we're not cleared, and we'll be self-clearing anyway. Time, UTC this side, local this side. Down onto the radio panel, everything's sat there and we're not going to need it today. So I think we'll just leave those set as they are. Not sure if the floodlight will make much difference. And we can leave the transponder set to 2000, which is the non-assigned IFR squawk conspicuity, as there is now one that exists certainly within the UK. So that's our initial setup done, and it looks like I've got 3 people watching, so if you are watching, as always, please say hi. And if you've got any questions, get them in now while we've got a little bit of time. Let's have a look at the OFP. Our flight time is going to be relatively short, and our block time is 1 hour and 10 minutes. I had filed for 14:30, 15:30 local off blocks. It's definitely not going to take that long to get airborne because it's runway 16 here, which is, if we just have a look outside, only up here. So it's going to be a no more than 10-minute taxi. And our en route time might actually be a little bit longer than that because we're not going to go straight into Liverpool. We are going to go out, and when we have a look at the charts in a moment, I'll show you, or if we have a look at the charts en route, I'll show you that we're going to do probably 1 lap of the hold for the arrival, and just to test the holding out, but B, show you how to set one up, and then we will probably go into Liverpool, and if it is 09 in use, then the procedural approach for that, it's worth going into the hold for, doing 1 lap, getting set up, going outbound, and then going into the ILS. And of course you don't have to do it that way, you could just make the points up, and we'll talk about that as well. So our alternate is East Midlands, which is not too far from Liverpool, but first order of business is to set ourselves up with some payload. So it'll be relatively light. This is just what virtual Ryanair dispatch has generated for me, so we will pop in 137 packs. Sausage Fest again. I might have to see if Zibo could consider generating that a bit more randomly, but I suppose it's just more grief, isn't it? And cargo 2014. Now I'm going to try putting all of that. Actually, no, we're quite light, so let's put 1024 in the back. Let's put 1 ton in the front. And if we have a look, oh no, it's going to have to go a lot further back than that. You can see there that our CG is somewhere like 15, 17, and ideally 20 to about 22 is ideal in the cruise for pitch, so it's a little bit more fuel efficient to get the CG to the rear. And I think with Ryanair, certainly they block off the front rows. It's a nice quick way of sorting the loading out. So if we move some of these back, yeah, I think the first 3 rows, so you know, half of zone 1, because it isn't actually in that configuration. So if we change that to 0 and put this is going to give me a headache, isn't it? What did we want? We had 20 up the front there, so we can make that 36. We can make that 32. We can make that 36, and we can make that 33. And let's see, that's, oh crikey, that's brought it much further back, so it just goes to show how much difference it can make. And with that in mind, let's pop 0 in the back, and let's see if we get 2024. I normally don't mess about with it that much. That's brought it back a bit too much. So we could go 1, 5, 2, 4, 500 in the back. That's not too bad, is it? Let's do that. So, next order of business is fuel. I've added an additional 10 minutes just because we are going to do a little bit of holding, and that should cover that. Our alternate, as I said, is East Midlands, 35 minutes away, and I'm not expecting us to have any weather issues on arrival. So 5042 we can request. Get the fuel truck on the way. And the fuel is starting to increase, which is good. So FMC is looking like it's ready for data because I've been chatting for so long. So let's start the flight leg. So I am a little bit unfamiliar with how to get weather straight off of X-Plane, so I'm going to actually get the real METAR. So Cork Airport METAR on my phone. The MET was last made 12 minutes ago at 1400. 1400 Zulu, of course. Wind is 19 knots from the south with gusts to 31. Temperature of 11, so 10 degrees colder than here because it's about 21, 22 in London. Pressure of 995. So let's pop that in. Now, of course, it may not quite match the sim. Broken, so visibility 1600 meters, which is legal for takeoff. Broken clouds at 200 feet, which is the ceiling because it is broken, and light rain. We've got a little bit of moisture on the windscreen there, so happy days there. Temperature 11, dew point 10, wind 170, 19, gust 31. So 10 degrees off, a little bit of a crosswind, but pretty windy, pretty gusty. And it looks like everyone's disappeared now. Why is live chat not working? Can't tell. Right, I'm gonna go. Can I go back to classic. This stream can be accessed from the manage list. Exiting will not end the stream if it's currently live. Okay. Okay, right. Nobody said anything anyway. Right, fine. Okay, right, now I certainly can't see it, so... I think this is my own fault for messing about. Should have just left it as it was. Can I get back to... studio? Right, sorry about this, and I should have left it well alone. Ah, it's a bit of a pain to try and get back to live studio. Right, here we go. There we go, back on. Right, ORK to Liverpool. Right, I can see chat now. So, Rick, hello. By striking Ave, hello again. Bad landing, never mind, I'm sure you'll recover from that. Right, so sorry for not being able to see that chat. Chat just wasn't working, and now I've reloaded the page. It's all fine. So, to both of you, thanks very much for joining. Luton to Salzburg must be quite nice. I think the weather in Salzburg is quite good, and at least you haven't experienced any crashes. And as you can see, my frame rate is still jittering about a bit, but I am purely GPU limited, so I can definitely turn down the anti-aliasing, etc. to sort that out. Anyway, right, back into this. Now that I've sorted the stream out, and hopefully we don't get any crashes. Like I said, I can't promise anything though. So nav data is correct. I'm just going to bring our data up here. We know where we are. Echo India Charlie Kilo. We are on stand 8. Pop the GPS codes in, required information in those boxes, and there goes the nav displays powering up. So route wise, we are off to Echo Golf Golf Papa. And we are Ryanair 9, not that it matters, Ryanair 9896. Now the route is not particularly long, but it is strange. We are going via Quebec 37 is what SimBrief gave us, which actually increases the route slightly, even though we are high enough to get into the airway that's just south of it, but we'll have a look at that on the chart a bit later. Ireland is pretty much free route airspace, so we get directed to TISMO and then straight to LIFFY, which is one of the departure points for Dublin as well, and then off to MALUD. So I am going to pop those in. So it's a route. You don't put the SID or the stars in. TISMO is our first waypoint, then we're off to LIFFY. LIFFY, do not need to write anything in for direct, you just pop it in. It's clearly LIFFY in the Northern Hemisphere. And then we are going via Quebec 37. Discontinuity because we need some information there. We're off to MALUD. And that's our route done. I am going to pop these in. And having had a look at the wind, we are going to be 1.6 at TISMO 1 Quebec, but you don't do that just yet. So, going to activate that route. Performance-wise, zero fuel weight, we had a predicted weight 57.2, we're about 1.1 tons light, and that's just because of my SimBrief weights, and Zibo weights don't match, which I still need to sort out. We are still fueling, or have we stopped? We've stopped. We've got 5060, slightly more than we requested, but that's better than nothing. Belts can go on. And we can look at our fuel. So, reserves 2396 is, I'm happy to round that to 2.4 and then 2.5. So we have a minimum of 100 by rounding it up twice. We could go even higher again, but as we're not online, I'm not expecting any delays to speak of. Trip and taxi 2132, I'm happy to call that 2.1 because we're not going to need 15 minutes of taxi fuel, and our total fuel is greater than, certainly greater than that, and greater than that, and that together. As you can see there, our additional reserve of 400 kilos. Anyway, as always, cost index is 6, and 270 is where we're off to. Top climb wind is 189 and 63, so giving us a wee boost on the way up. Top of climb ISA is -1 in Celsius. Execute that, and onto the N1 limits. So, having a look at the performance calculator AppSoft, Cork anti-ice is going to be off for the immediate takeoff because visibility is 1600 and icing conditions for the distance. I'm just going to double check. This doesn't come up very often, so what do we consider icing conditions? We know if it's in cloud, fog, and I had a feeling that 1600 might just be the limit. So visible moisture is one of the criteria, and 15 fog, so visible moisture clouds, fog with a visibility of 1500 meters or less, and precipitation. So although we had light rain, it is still raining, so we will need anti-ice for departure, and that'll be engine ice, anti-ice only, optimum flap, engine bleeds will be on, thrust will be optimum. Planned takeoff weight is 62.039, which is what we've got there. It's going to be lower than that, but that will give us an increased margin. So, Cork 170, 1600. The runway is, however, dry and it's 11 degrees. Let's calculate that. And there is no derate, so it's a full rated takeoff. And, oh dear. No, that's fine. So 26k. Takeoff, we are going to pop the wind in, which is 170 at 19. But with gust to 21, the runway is dry. Now the departure for Cork does specify takeoff climb should comply with NADAP 1 or NADAP 2. So NADAP 1 is more favourable for us. 800 is the lowest minimum for the thrust reduction, and it's more favourable for us to get up to our climb speed quicker. It's going to be a flat 5 departure. CG of 22.6 gives us a trim of 5, and speed wise speed-wise, I've got some different speeds, and that's probably because of the engine anti-ice. So 127, 134, and 144. We know it's runway 16, and we are going to put in TISMO 1 Quebec. Is that a suitable departure? So TISMO 1 Quebec is category A and B, so we need TISMO 1 Sierra because the departure on turn is needing to be made at 2.5, not 1,000, so that's worth checking the chart for. You see, there we go, 2.5 is the point at which we can turn. So we know that that's what we're going to get. We can pop it in, and I'm going to put the arrival in at this point as well. So 1 Charlie, and then we'll look at the runway a little bit later. That won't affect anything. That's you'll see that from the chart later. Using reserve fuel, do we need to check that? 2.6, so we're still fine. So let's get our pretend pack sat down. Let's get the APU started.
Ladies and gentlemen, you'll see the seatbelt lights flash on and on. It's also an indication for you to actually make sure that your seatbelt is securely fastened and ready for departure.
So let's hope better pushback works. It's alright to me. Be a bit difficult if you couldn't see through that cloud.
Ground to cockpit. Plan acknowledged. Call me through the menu when you are ready.
Good, so we're happy with that. So, takeoff performance is done. Our takeoff run was 1550 in meters, which is more than enough. The runway is 2133, and the minima, takeoff minima is 125 meters. And runway 16, usable lengths, but no distances. Right, having a look at that, the runway is 2133 meters long, and we're going to go from Alpha. So, happy days on the distance. Good. So, Rick asked a question in chat, what's the difference between 11.41 and 11.50 B1, Beta 1 Vulkan? So Vulkan is the new API. It's primarily graphics based, and essentially it should better utilize your GPU, and it should take some of the load off of the CPU, prevent some stuttering. And OpenGL is a very, very, very old bit of kit. X-Plane used it, so it's cross-compatible with Linux and Mac, whereas DirectX was a much better thing. So even old flight sim, you know, Microsoft FSX 2000, they all go back and they used I just said it, DirectX, which was a better API. Gives Laminar a bit more control over what goes on, and as you can see, I've cranked the settings up, and I'm now starting to be GPU limited, but I'm still getting a really decent frame rate, whereas before it was dropping pretty spectacularly. So that's Vulkan. I might put in, once we get the cruise, I'll probably put a link in. But for now, it's time to think about our departure. So, no, I don't want that. I want to go to airports. Don't really need to have a look at the airport charts, so we'll just have a look at... Did I just click on arrivals? No. So, TISMO 1 Quebec was what was filed, and Simbrief for some reason doesn't pick up that we're a Category C aircraft, which is just a little bit, it's just a little bit annoying. And the only difference is that Category A and B aircraft only have to go straight ahead to 1,000. We have to go straight ahead to 2.5 before we can turn on track. So Cork VOR, we're going to be outbound 164, probably should have gone the other way. And it's an RNAV overlay, but this does our MSAs as well, so MSAs are quite important, especially when we're thinking now about being in low visibility, which we are. So Cork 1146 is tuned, and so we're going to go ahead on 164, and the stop is do not climb 5,000. There you go. Initial climb clearance 5,000. So we're going to self-clear ourselves. We are going to set 144. And most importantly, I'm going to put this one on 270. Just as a reference, because that then shows our MSAs, and that is what, unless we're established on a procedure, we don't want to descend below because of terrain or obstacles. So MSAs for instrument flying are quite important, and so until we get to TISMO, we don't want to be below 1,000. And actually I'll take a forward, that's Dublin. We could come back here, although yeah, runway 16 is the primary instrument runway, so we would be perfectly able to do that. So 1502 is going to be our minimum flap. What I am expecting is Toga not to play nice. So flight director, master on my side. It's all set up. APU is on. Pop all the pumps on. And from an overhead perspective, we are good to go. The dual bleed warning there just means with the engines running, don't apply anything above idle throttle, because it will
Ground to cockpit. Tow is driving up.
potentially damage the APU. And there we go, so we are getting hitched up. And so far, better pushback has worked. Did I see a tug? Or is the visual model not there? Okay, no, it's in the terminal building, which is a little bit unrealistic, but I can live with that. So at least we can see it. And once X-Pilot gets updated to take best use of this, I think it'll be good to get onto that. Assuming that the beta doesn't crash, so you guys are guinea pigs as well. There's no guarantee that we'll actually get to Liverpool at this rate, but I'm pretty hopeful.
Okay, all doors and hatches are closed. Ready to connect.
So, no radio calls to make, nothing else to worry about. We are just going to pretend that we have been cleared for the departure. The runway heading is 164. And you'll probably notice that I don't do the before start checks. There's quite a lot there, and of course you should. But a lot of these are just covered off anyway. It's just a case of whacking the packs off. So if you really want to make sure,
Tow connected and bypass pin and survey. Release parking brake.
then you can do those. But most of the time I don't forget anything. Okay, so the cabin is now secure, and we can start our push. So Smart Cars is still running. Feels weird not having X-Pilot on. Brakes off.
Starting pushback, and you may start engines.
1433. It's a little bit of a long push, so I'm not going to start the engines up straight away. It says I've got 4 people watching, which I think is probably a record. As always, if you are watching, please say hi. Like I said, I am sorry I didn't spot those earlier, but chat was not working. Which feel free to blame that on user error. And where are we going? Well, that's terrible. It should have at least gone just straight back, so Hopefully better pushback doesn't cause us too much grief, but again, like I say, it's a beta, so at least it works. I think people have said it doesn't work with VR, but I'm not VR ready yet. So let's get engine number 2 started. Packs off. Start engine number 2. Start switches to ground. Onto the lower DU. Watching the N2 rise. And there's oil temp. And we're waiting for oil pressure to come up. Which it does. A lack of oil pressure is a bad thing for anything mechanical. 25% fuel to idle, which I have an external button for. I mention this every time, but if you haven't seen one of my streams before, I've got a switch for that. It just makes it easier than trying to faff about with these. And then we can monitor that start. There's the starter cutout. Valve goes off, and if you're really quick, you will see the spar valve light up here. So we'll have a look at that as we start engine number 1. Blocky shadows are really irritating. I know there's ways that you can fix them. I don't want to do it with scripts or anything else. I'm happy to edit a config file to fix that. It's pretty bad the way the settings are so dropped down. It'd be nice to have some advanced settings.
Operation
graphics.
Complete. Set parking brake.
So brakes on. Let's,
Disconnecting tow. Stand by.
so we'll start engine number 1, and if you watch the spar valves and the engine valves, start engine 1. Oh no. I tell you what, that will come open when we flick the fuel on, I think. So we'll get to 25% and we'll have a look up and we'll see what happens. So there's 25, fuel on, bright and then off.
Tow is disconnected and bypass bin has been removed. Hand signal on the right. We'll see you next time and have a safe flight.
There was the starter cutout. We've got 2 happy engines there. 2, 4, 6 and 3. So we can run through the before taxi or the after start flow. And we said engine anti-ice is going to be on. I hear a ding. There we go. Seen the pin. And that's because it's now 11 degrees, so engine anti-ice is not required. So we've seen the pin. Let's go flap 5. So there is flap 5, flight control check, full forward, full aft, full left, full right, full left rudder, full right rudder. Trims checked, config is checked, and the before taxi checklist. Generators both on, APUs off, start switches are continuous. Probe heat is on, anti-ice is not required, it's above 10 degrees. Air conditioning set, cruise 270, PAX auto, bleeds on, isolation valve auto, flap 5, green light, stab trim, 5 set, 5 required, flight controls checked, recalls checked, we are ready to taxi. So we would be Ryanair 9896 request taxi, and we would be given taxi holding point Alpha via whatever taxiway this is. I think it's Bravo. Let's have a look. Maybe not. So that's where we're going to taxi. Lights on. And I am still watching the chat out of the corner of my eye. clear left, clear right, looking forwards, holding on the brakes, config checked. To the tiller, and we just taxi straight down the end. It's a pretty short taxi, so let's get the aeroplane prepped. So I said I'm expecting toga not to work in this version, which is a Zibo rather than a Vulkan issue. So this is Zibo fix 7. One thing we should have on is the wipers. But I'm sure that will be picked up at some point. And one thing I am finding is that you guys probably can't see this because the resolution's that bit smaller, but it's still a bit jaggy, even considering this is at 8 times. But I mean, it's really not impacting the GPU too much, so I could always turn it down. Anyway, this is holding point alpha. It is not LVPs because I think the visibility's got to go down to about 500 meters here at Cork, and the ceiling has got to be below 200. It's at 200 at the moment. If it was, we would hold at this Cat 2, Cat 3 hold. So as it is not LVPs, this is our hold here. So let's get the cabin secure. And we will announce or get cleared for takeoff.
Okay, the cabin is secured. Have a good flight.
So cabin secure, transponder goes on. We're not going to get surprised by any aircraft, AI or otherwise. Recalls checked. 144, 144. And trim is correct, so we are good to go. So you'll remember.
Approaching 16.
That the wind was about 170, so we've got a slight crosswind from the right. We will need some left rudder on takeoff, which of course you can't see, but I can, and a little bit of interwind aileron. We'll do a rolling takeoff. So get the engines up to 40% and stabilised. They are.
On runway 16.
Just get the wipers on. So power, toga, time. So it's quite a lot of left rudder actually.
80 knots.
My excuse anyway. And as we're relatively light and at full power, you see we are going to accelerate very rapidly.
V1. Rotate. Positive rate.
Gear up. And there you go, you can see the flight director is not on the ball there, so straight into cloud, 15 degrees,
400.
fine. LNAV checked. You can see it's bumpy as hell. So we are on a roll.
1000.
There's the throttle reduction. So I'm trying to climb straight ahead. So shall we bug the airplane up? A bit late on the flaps there. But as you can see, frames are looking pretty good. Flap up. Onto the flight directors. Let's settle this down. See how hard the autopilot's working. I don't fancy doing that, thanks. But apart from the flight directors being a little bit finicky there. Everything's
1,000 to
alright.
go.
So we've out acquired already. So LNAV, we should have turned. This point is calculated, and I think in the real aeroplane it will just get to 2.5 and then turn, which is what should have happened. Anyway, let's bug the airplane up. Water brake off, flaps up, no lights, gear up and off. Start switches can come off. 4 pumps. Release the crew. settings checked. And let's go straight up to our cruise. Set flight level.
Altimeter setting.
There's no restriction on there, so out into vent, and we should start climbing. Set standard, clear to flight level. If I can click on anything. And off we go direct to TISMO. So is it less stuttery? You know what, it's pretty difficult to tell with the turbulence and the aeroplane bumping around all over the place. But it certainly feels smoother. The frame rate seems to stay a bit more consistent. I might have to turn the GPU settings down a little bit. But like I say, they're pretty much maxed out. Ground scenery shadows are on. And it seems to have taken a massive load off the CPU, which is, you know, what we want really. So there's the airplane turning, which was nice, if a little late. Some beautiful ortho, zoom level 17 of Ireland. I think that's Cork proper out there. Yes, it is. So, looks pretty good. Looks pretty good, especially for free. There's us passing flight level 100, so 4 pumps on, lights off. Diff is 4.2, the cabin is climbing and the cabin's at 1500. Cruise is set once, twice, 3 times. It's checked. After it's pre-cruise checks. And has it settled down enough to let the punters out? I'm going to say yes. I regret that. So, apart from some sketchy flying there, it seems pretty good to me. Frames are holding up, considering there's quite a bit of weather about. An active sky and the weather normally puts a bit of a hit on, but you can see now that the CPU and GPU are running pretty neck and neck, which is good. Whichever the higher of these values shows up is what is determining the frame at that point in time, so they're looking pretty good, considering we've got ortho, which eats up a huge amount of memory, but doesn't look very good. I've got ex-Europe as overlays, which is giving us the power lines, the roads, the occasional bit of autogen building. So yeah, looking pretty good from my perspective. So if you are watching, please say hi, please like, please sub if you haven't already. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. And then I do try and notify a little bit more in advance of any of the streams I'm doing. So how are we doing with a redraw? So the redraws are irritating, but again, there wasn't much of an impact there. Maybe a little bit, but it certainly didn't spike like it has done before. I think the big question will come as we go and load up new tiles, whether or not that'll put a massive dip in. I'm just trying to think, there's got to be a couple of tiles that we've got to pass over on the way to Liverpool. So anyway, no restriction on this. After TISMO we are, it should be 049, just to check the point. 049 at 25 DME is TISMO, which looks like it is bang on, doesn't it? So you can see that from the chart. 25.1 DME is TISMO, that's outside the MSA arc. We're outside the MSA, which go out to 25 miles. And it's just a raw data backup to prove that you're going to the right point. So lots of information on those charts you can make use of. And as you can see, we're climbing up pretty well. What is... would be interesting to know cruise of 396. So Active Sky briefing gave us 290, had slightly better winds. So I'm not quite sure why it's such a low level. I know that it's probably in reality a little bit heavier loaded, but we will just make do. So 200, another 10 check every 10,000 feet. Check the life support, don't call it pressurization, call it life support, because if this goes wrong you may die. So cabin diff 6.6, cabin of 1, 2, 3.5, climbing steadily. So once we get to the top of climb we'll see how long we've got, and you can see we're not, you know, it's only another 200 miles. We're getting an ETA of 15:34, so what, another 40 something minutes. But like I said, we'll have a look at the charts. I'll show you the charts for the arrival, which are pretty simple, but they may leave you with something of a question as to how to get, if you are using charts, which you should be if you want to fly this aeroplane with any degree of success. We'll have a look at how we're going to get from an arrival that doesn't actually take you to the approach necessarily, how we're going to get to Liverpool from that. What I will do is use my phone again to check the weather at Liverpool. Good old Google. Good old internet really. Right, so Liverpool John Lennon Airport. First place he went when he got famous. Terrible joke, but true. So, yeah, 14:20 Zulu. Ages ago, wasn't it? No, half an hour ago. So there should be a new one soon, unless they're just updating every, unless they're only doing it every hour. The wind is 150, 17. So that's going to favour 09. Severe Cav OK. There's no such thing as severe Cav OK, it's Cav OK, but it's looking pretty good out of my window. Temperature of 18, dew point of 6, and QNH of 1007. So virtual Ryanair SOP 1007 set as a gross error check. You should pop the forecast QNH in, and let's get rid of the charts for the time being. I'll get those back in a minute, and we would get the weather.
1,000 to go.
This page, Liverpool 1007, so it is the same. That's our forecast QNH, or the actual QNH, and we set that because that is a gross error check to make sure, for instance, that if we were to go into Liverpool with ATC and they gave us 1017, we might question that and double check it, because 10 HPA is approximately 300 feet and is quite a big difference. It shouldn't vary that much from the actual or the forecast. You can't forecast QNH, but from the actual that was given when the OFP was generated, unless it's, you know, pretty stormy weather, etc. Yeah, so still, it's not perfect. Still looking a bit jaggy to me. Anyway, that's us at cruise, and we are on our way. 270. Cabin's happy at 4.5 because we're low, and the frame rate has been pretty consistent. GPU's being utilised to its full potential. The clouds, the shadows from the clouds on the scenery are again pretty impressive. A little bit flickery in places. Some of the textures can be a bit flickery. Don't get me wrong, it's not perfect. But I've got to say, it looks pretty good. There's a little bit of repetition there. These are the performance clouds from Active Sky, so we could potentially think about using the high quality one, although apparently these ones look a bit fluffier and have got less repetition. But, you know, everything's a compromise. So, Dublin is over here. Top of descent wise, says 15:16, so we haven't got that long, 20 minutes in the cruise. So let's have a look. First we'll pop our forecast winds in. And we talked about this before, we're at 270, so we'll pop 3 sets in, but it would be these. If we were higher than 310, we'd use 310, 200 and 100, miss that one out. Which I will zoom in, because I always forget that it's not as clear for you guys. I know somebody's watching, so if you are, again, please say hi. Please feel free to ask any questions. I'll try and answer them as best I can, if at all I can. So, having a look at the charts, and we'll see this a little bit later. The transition altitude at Liverpool is 5,000. With a QNH of 1007, gives us a transition level of 065. You would get that from the ATIS, but you can also work it out using the same table that the air traffickers would use. 200, if you pop it in the bottom, it'll go at the top. 100. Now I'll tell you what, let's pop it in this way and see what happens when I put 150 in. I think it'll sort those out. It does, isn't that clever? So 200, 195, and 52. No, 195 at 55. I can't select that, so 195, 55, 195, 55, 195, 52. And 192 at 51. Some pretty strong winds about. 1007, which is not a massive difference, and we can get the ISA from here. So the ISA deviation is -1 here. We would need to get the altitude and temperature for Liverpool. So the temperature is 18 from the METAR. The airport elevation is 81 feet of sea level. So 15 degrees is ISA at sea level. It's 2 degrees per 1,000 feet, so we can categorically say that 81 is not worth worrying about. 500 feet might be worth worrying about. And so it is 3 degrees above, it is -1 here. So the ISA deviation is going to be 2. The average of -1 and +3. And that is our forecast done. Arrivals, we've taken the type order 1 and Charlie, so let's get that chart up. So Echo Golf Golf Papa. So arrival, typod 1 Charlie. We are going to be using 09 because we looked at the weather. So approach, and we will use the ILS, but there is an NDB involved. We could have a think about the RNAV, but I did want to speak about procedural because RNAV will, in general, take you in. And it's simply just a straight line. That's a missed approach hold rather than a procedural hold. So what we could do there, that is not the arrival we're flying. What are we? So let's have a look at our flight plan. No, 3 Alpha, good, okay, so I'm being an idiot. So typod 3 Alpha. Execute that. I think that's brought on top of descent forward some, yes. So it's definitely not that approach. Let's start again. Approach. No, I want arrival. Right, so 3 Alpha. We're going to have a look at procedural approach and the differences with the RNAV. So RNAV wise, the question that some of you might have is what use is this as an arrival? Well, it gets us to Typod, which is a hold, and that's about it. It gets us near to Liverpool, and it keeps us relatively clear of Manchester's arrivals, but it doesn't do much more than that. So Typod 3 Alpha, 270 by LIFFY, that's fine. And then aim for clearance to flight level 70, zoom that in, by Typod, and if Wallasey is unserviceable, then use the Mersey Stars into Manchester. Do not proceed past Typod without ATC clearance. Based on the Wallasey VOR, Liverpool NDB is what we set the MSAs off, so we do need to tune that 349.5. So let's try, that one would be better than it. Let's try 350. See if we can pick Liverpool up. It's probably a bit too far out at the moment. We will need the NDB. So that's going to get us to Typod. And the approaches are then also quite interesting. So the procedure, direct subject to Manchester ATC would actually be able to do that. And straight in, which is going to be quite nice, quite efficient, and is what you're going to expect. Or equally, you could go straight to the initial fix of your backsuit for the ORK 09. It's a 3-degree approach. LNAV VNAV can take you down to 300, but of course the ILS can take you down even further to 260, which is 200 feet AGL. We will pop some anti-ice on for those clouds that are rapidly approaching ahead. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop a hold in at Typod, just in case you were given a hold at Typod. So what is the inbound course? You can see here it's 117, and we're coming for 3 Alpha to Typod, 085, so 265 radial. Yes, that makes sense. It's 2 and 6 add 28, 085. But the hold is 117 right turns, and then it's just a standard 1.5 minute leg, max 210 or below 140, which it will be. So I think we have to redo that on the legs page. But we want 117 right turn /R. Otherwise we are going to come in at 085 and we'll end up holding like that. So 117 right, and that should still be a direct entry at 7,000 on the legs page, but we could at 70. So let's make that 210 below, and let's make it flight level 100, just so we have to do some descending in the hold. That should be 210 below as well. Execute that. 210, 7,000. Happy days. So that's entering a hold. Speed limit point wise, we should be having a look here. 270 Bavard. There's Malud. We're at 240 anyway. So it seems to have picked that restriction up. Good. So can we pick up Liverpool yet? I'm going to leave it on ADF2. We're going to want Wallasey on 114.1. There is Wallasey. And again we can use that. Typod is D6 60 ME 297. So we 117 inbound. And you can see that's us coming in, and we're holding along that line there. Whack the anti-ice off now. So there goes the weather. There drops the frames as it redraws. It's dropped quite a bit there. CPU is working quite hard to sort that out, and now the GPU seems to be limiting us. But apart from that, seem to be doing all right. It's just pretty interesting with weather over Ireland. Very deceptive there, making us think that we're in a right-hand turn. Oh, well, that's because we are. Turn. And we must have had a little bit of a pressure change because we've dropped by 80 feet. Not enough to set VNav off. So that's going to get us somewhere near to Liverpool. Obviously it's real easy to use the RNAV, come straight in. And you can use integrated approach and hit app on that, and it will bring you along and take you down, similar to an ILS, but we're not going to do that. What we are going to do is have a look at runway 09. So we've got that tuned, we've got that tuned. This symbol here means not 24 hours, so this ILS is not on 24 hours a day, many are. So you can't rely on that. For instance, if you needed to use it to descend below cloud for whatever reason. So we're going to set it once, 114, we might as well put 11. Any other VORs to worry about there? No. So we'll set 1141. 11175. So that is telling us to reset MCP out, which we will do, down to 100. Now we haven't done the landing performance, mostly because I'm not quite sure how long we're going to spend holding, and therefore how much we're going to worry about weight-wise. But you see, Typod, if you remember, is 6 miles from this point, and so that could be a little bit messy to intercept at 70 ME arc, because you would be at 6 and be cutting in, so you'd have to do some tidying up on that. 298, it's a little bit out, but you could do that on your own and get yourselves in a decent position to get onto the ILS. What we're going to do is go to Typod, hold once and lose some altitude, maybe 1,000 feet a minute, drop down to around about 70, and then we're going to head straight for the Liverpool NDB. We could go to Wallasey first and then Liverpool, but we're going to head straight towards the Liverpool NDB, and then we are going to enter the hold there as well. I may do that on the heading select, and then we've got to think about what's going to happen. So there's a hold there that we can descend in, because this is a 2,500 level procedure. You've got to arrive not below MSA. So having a look at MSAs here, we could descend to 2.5 in this sector, but as we so we would be fine in this sector, but if we were coming from any of the others, you would have to remain above these, either at 3, 3.5, 4 on your way down, and then have to descend in the hold. So we'll do that as well. You can see that the aeroplane is now happily descending. We've got 4 pumps. We'll pump seatbelts on it a little bit. But this route I thought was quite interesting because SimBrief gave us this airway rather than this one, which would have been a tiny bit shorter and just taking us straight in, which I did think was a little bit odd. So Lima Upper Lima 975 or Lima 975 would have done us rather than Quebec 37. Would have led to the same point. So just shows that SimBrief can be a bit interesting when it comes to routings. Downwind ILSs we will check, but for now there's not a huge amount to do because we're just going to go down, enter the hold, and then fly the procedure. And like I said, I'm not going to hand fly it. And we're going to be a little bit lighter than what we think here. So at the moment it's thinking it's going to be 59.4. It's not, because we're going to use a bit more fuel than that. So let's go into landing at Liverpool 09, dry runway. Let's see what the latest weather is. Pardon me. So 1450 Zulu. It's now 1510. 14016. It is still 18 degrees. It is 1006. We think we're going to be at, did we say 59.4? Ten knot headwind, 13 knot crosswind. Let's see what flap 30 gives us. And you'll see that's not ideal. And when we have a look at the layout at Liverpool, there is a high-speed taxiway, which is Foxtrot. Foxtrot is 1483. I think there is not a hope in hell of us getting that, even if we use flat 40. No, I tell you what, 1483, we might. So if we do flat 40 auto brake 3, we might just make a high speed exit. Only try, so let's go flat 40. 5 knots. That's us happy. So anyway, that's our landing performance done. Frame rate still looking stonking, still getting these little artifacts over here. I thought it was something to do with the reflections, but I don't think it is. I think I'm still getting a bit of tearing when I'm looking around, even though the frame rate's good, and even though I've got FreeSync on, which should stop that from happening, but I'm not convinced. You can see the hold has been properly drawn there. So the frame rate's bumping about a bit, but it's still pretty good. I think certainly if we go outside it improves a little bit. Lots of weather behind us. Not so much over here. A little bit of a tyre, there's a shame there. But like I say, Ortho is free. It's not perfect, but it is free. So the frames are looking better outside. Look like they're picking up a little bit with the lack of weather. You can hear as we get rid of the anti-ice, flight idle drops a little bit. That's quite good, the sort of flickering that you get from the clouds. It's quite realistic. terrain mesh is pretty good. Certainly doesn't feel like there's stutters, it feels a lot smoother. Even sort of zoomed like that, the textures appear pretty sharp. You expect them to get a bit blurrier in the distance. The auto-gen always looks a little bit fake from sort of an oblique angle when you're looking at buildings. Not as dense as I suppose it could be. Interesting to see the frame rate drop to sort of like 25 zooming in there. Don't know what that is. Maybe it's to do with the auto-gen. And anyway, green banana looks like it's bang on at Typod. So we're going to go into the hold, so we're going to go in and we're going to go round and it's not going to leave, so we can set the arrival up. And we want ILS for 09. We don't want H is this one, the 7 DME, 8 DME, which is 298 H, 8 miles. 298, 8 miles, that's the direct arrival there. We don't want that because we'll be holding around there. I mean, we could use it, but you'd have to go out, back and round. So that's one way that you could do it. We want either Liverpool 1 or Liverpool 2. So I think Liverpool 1 is... It seems illogical to me because Cat A and B should be 1, C and D should be 2. So if we look on the legs page, 279 is Cat C and D, what we want. That's what we've got. But all that's doing is taking us from Typod, Liverpool 16, which is that one because the Liverpool NDB is offset from the DME. That DME 10 miles is based on the ILS, which is here, which is clearly a couple of miles away. A little bit of trigonometry as well from the Liverpool DME. So that's going to take us to there, but we actually want, I think, I'm going to insert some extra points. The difficulty may come that we may need to add this back in because you can't line select that and put it back in. So what we could do, no we can't, we think that's 16 based on that. Anyway, we're going to have to fly this manually anyway, so let's pop that in to start with. Get the legs on this side, we're going to go to Typod, we're going to hold at Typod, then I think we're going to go Wallasey direct Liverpool. So let's put Wall in, then Liverpool, and that has taken us there to Wallasey. I'm not quite sure what
1,000 to go.
Set. Drag required is fine because we're going to go into the hold, execute that, so that is in, along, Wallasey, Liverpool, and then back out, but it hasn't got anything for that back out, so we're going to need to pop another hold in. It's going to be a hold at Liverpool. Maybe we do already have it. 267087. Right hand turn. Max 185, so actually that is all in. So that's the missed approach hold. So what we actually want is hold at that Liverpool, not 103, 087, right. So we should start turning. Yes, there we are in the hold, happy. 103, right. No, 087, right, yes. 185, we can change on the legs. Hold right, and it's 185B /. Minimum is 2,000. We really want to be 2,500 or above. We're at 85 below Liverpool. We need a / there, don't we? Two and a half. 0.9. Fix goes in. It's going to be VMC. 4. Pop a 10 mile ring in for awareness. Execute that. And we are happy. So let's head down to 7,000. And I know I rattled through that pretty quickly. The thing we do need is this hold. Should be max 210. So I'm pretty sure we did put that in. And it. You're in speed rather than VNav. That's only because I was heads in playing around with it. So let's get all the lights on, pumps are on. Let's get the punters sat down. Diff is down to 3.5, depressurizing nicely. Recalls checked. And we can actually bring the speed back to the flap up because it's 210 or below. And flap up is the most efficient speed. Nobody's watching anymore anyway, that's a shame. So that's why obviously there's 2 people. So this should be 297 outbound. So because we've taken quite a big arc, may fly us in a little bit tighter. But we are in this hold and I'm happy that we can exit after the next lap. And we're just going to use a bit of speed brake to get it back. From a frame rate perspective, hey, that scenery looks really good. There's a bit more autogen, it's still a bit sketchy. But from further away it looks, if you ask me, pretty good. Speed, and I think Zibo, the mod, is just going to correct for that and take us back round, because that was a little bit of a large sloppy turn. And I think we can go to about 500 feet a minute there. So, on our way outbound, we've got Typod, T-Pod, whatever you want to call it, Wallasey, direct. I've certainly done it before, Wallasey, and then outbound to intercept that, which has worked quite well. You could do an intercept course, but direct is going to be fine. We're still above the MSA. Nice bit of wind farmage down here. Looks like the aeroplane's flying that hold a bit better. Like I say, my own fault for not monitoring the speed. I knew we weren't going to drop out the sky, but could have done a little bit better there. But frame rates in the 40s are pretty good. GPU's not working as hard.
1,000 to go.
These shadows out. So 7,000 at Typod. Then we're going to want 2.5, like I say, above the MSA. Then once we're in the hold, it's safe to descend, staying within that protected airspace on the chart here. So inbound, direct, do a hold, and I don't think the aeroplane is going to manage that initial outbound. We'll see what's drawn. And what I'm tempted to do is see what happens and let it fly it, because obviously it's very easy for us to just do that, start timing for a minute, and then turn right all the way around track 279 and back inbound towards the beacon. But I'd like to see if the aeroplane will do it. If not, if we leave it in LNAV, yeah, I don't see how it can. So let's just do that manually. I don't think the aeroplane can do that. What it can do is then get us back onto that. Even 7,000 is looking a bit low. So legs wise, 7-0, that's fine by me. So we can go down
1,000 to go.
2.5. What does VNAV command? 210. Fine. Let's leave it at that. So VNAV path. Airplane is leveled off nicely at what it was commanded to do. And we should. Exits armed. Tells us we've got 10 minutes. That's really useful to have. Hold available 10 minutes. Best speed 188. Not convinced about the best speed because we'd need some flap for that. So this should exit, take us towards Wallasey. If it doesn't, we'll go heading select. And then update. Wallasey, there we go. Exit's armed and has worked. You can see the VNAV profiles working out quite nicely. And because we're going to go into the hold at Liverpool, I'm happy that we can let it do its own thing in the descent. But this is clearly so boring, everyone's left and stopped watching. I mean, it's not like you can go out and enjoy the sunshine. Maybe it's feeling a bit stuttery. CPU's going up. I didn't see if it was tanking like it was before. So Vulkan is really, like I say, a graphics upgrade, and whilst it is having an effect on lowering CPU, I think it's just because it's offloading things from it. The next step is to really start using multiple cores, especially for plugins and anything else that's critical sort of explain, like in the foreground. I think I've got a little bit of stuttering there. Not stuttering, but micro stutters over the ground. So maybe Vulkan isn't all it's cranked up to be, but then bearing in mind I have got the settings cranked up. So off to Liverpool we are. Where's our descent? Top of descent there, really. Okay, can live with that. I mean, they do seem reduced and a bit more micro stuttery versus big stutters. And I suppose there is quite a bit, don't know if you can see that there, there is quite a bit of auto-gen. Either way, I mean the frame rates are up, so it's clearly doing something. It's just not perhaps as good as I'd hoped. I mean, as long as they're not taking a massive tank, it's certainly flyable. It just seems with the auto it takes away that immersion a little bit. With those little stutters around the edge. It's not so bad from the front. But when you look to the sides, especially with the field of view that I've got, it does make a bit of a difference. But I mean, if I'm maintaining steady 30s where I would maybe be expecting 20 to 25 before, you can see the GPU really isn't working that hard. It's all CPU based. let's try how it vent, see if that gets us descending. So you can see the airport is down here and to our right. Quite a bit of drift there. Just ever so slight micro stuttering. Lots of drift. The NDB must be over here somewhere. So we have passed and we've been cleared descending to an altitude, so we should have set the current QNH, which is 1005. What is that? Is that 10 degrees drift? It's probably not far off, is it? Do we need a bit of speed brake? Get that speed back to the up speed. Alright, yep, drag required, get it. It's definitely smoother. I think there's ever so slight micro stuttering, but it's definitely better than it was. It was a lot more noticeable than that. So I think if the CPU, you know, if generating autogen could be offloaded and then they could be, you know, gradually faded in rather than popping, I think it would be pretty good. Hang on a minute, we appear to be going up. Why is that? So, into the hold, and we do. Now there's the speed creeping up, so. It was a bit slow to catch that. Let's get the aeroplane descending. So we are not picking up Liverpool on 350, so let's try 349. In reality, it should work with both. There it is. And we don't need Wallasey anymore, so we can pop the ILS both. And here we are in the hold at Liverpool. So it's max 185. Let's get flap 1, which was a little bit early. Match speed. And let's check that the ILS is correct one. India Lima Victor Romeo, yes. 087, yes. So we can set course. 087, our minimum is 260, which is not a problem today. You can see here procedure restricted to 220, so we're going to be going outbound with flap 1. We're going to be intercepting 7.5 at 2,500 feet, which is pretty comfortable, so we only need to really be flap 5. Hopefully once we've turned level we'll have a little bit of time just to get it set up flap 5. Should be 267. We're not, but we are a little bit far out. So I think at the end of this one, let's exit after this one, and we will see what VNAV does. We need to go to the beacon and then we need to go outbound. I have a feeling that it's going to want to go straight to 279, so is it going to want to do a left or a right hand turn? I'm not convinced. Anyway, 1 minute is difficult to do, so that's the intermediate approach after holding, so that's what we need to do. Track 057, so I'm going to set what's drift have we got? 273, about 10 degrees. So let's set 060 on the heading to account for that, and we can fine tune it. What we've got to remember to do is as we go over the beacon, start the stopwatch, 1 minute, and then round we go. Be a right turn, 279. It's really interesting that that's coming up because it shouldn't even be picking it up. It's just one of the lovely quirks of X-Plane. So I'm going to put 279 on there just to remind myself. Obviously you wouldn't in reality. How's the hold? Where are we going? Personally I think it's a little bit far out. What's that roll rate like? Roll looking relatively smooth. Let's go down to 300 feet a minute. And so you can imagine if this was a cloud base of maybe 500, 1,000 feet, this would be all IMC. And we need to be at 2.5 to start the procedure, because it's level all the way, which is going to use a huge amount of fuel. And as you can see, we're not worried about our alternate. We can get in here, we can go to Manchester. It's properly nice weather. See the airport below us out here. And I just want to see what VNAV does. So we should be tracking direct towards the beacon. It's looking a little bit messy. There's the ILS student identified, which I'm happy with. Off to the NDB. It seems to have just gone right through it. Maybe there's some balkage with the holds. So, what do I think is going to happen? I think LNAV is going to take us to the left, and I think it's going to keep going. Now we could, in theory, compute a rough... We could do a custom waypoint. It's 1 minute, and then back to the beacon and then outbound. So you could put a custom waypoint with the correct track. It would just be the distance that would be the questionable bit. But at 185, at 1 minute, it's going to be, what, 3 miles? You know, so you could roughly estimate it. So as we go overhead, we're going to start the timer. Hopefully it's going to be a left turn. Frame rate's holding up, still a bit stuttery. It's a lot smoother, but it's still a bit stuttery. We're at 2.5. So we've got, what's that, about 8 degrees drift. It's going to be a bit more as we come outbound. Could work it out, not going to. It's going to be about 10 degrees. So there is not the beacon. So I think that's going to keep on going. Yes it is, so let's stop that. We want 057 outbound for a minute. That's 057 there, track 654. I thought I saw the obstacle. a bit more than that. So there should be something over here. Maybe I need the VFR layer on, which I've turned off. It's good when you see things like that, the obstacles that you're trying to miss. 056, alright, that's going to do. It's within a degree. We are looking for 1 minute outbound. .057 P. As you can see, a little bit of a mess. There's our minute. So back round towards the beacon. It's almost a 180. And pictorially you can see it shows a turn that goes all the way around. I don't think we're going to get that, so we're going to go back to the beacon initially. Let's try something like 210. Maybe let's try 200. We'll adjust. If you are watching, say hi. Ask questions if I'm not making any sense. But I mean, so far it's been flying pretty well. Like I say, ever so slight perception of stutters. But I mean, I don't know if it's going to make much difference. It's got to be the CPU that's being maxed out there. So no, we're going to keep going round because we want to keep coming back round to the beacon. And we are outbound for a long way. So you see what I mean about that turn not being a continuous turn. I suppose you could make it a continuous turn if you varied the bank angle a bit. But we are quite close. We're only 3 miles away. So you could fly this by hand. Might be a bit easier to fly by hand, to be honest. Now do us direct to the beacon, and then, as we've now done that turn, we can let LNAV take us outbound, hopefully. Of course you don't get the benefit of a moving map like that, but it's good just to see where the tracks have been. That hold was a mess. We are heading straight for the NDB. So let's pop LNAV on. You should see that flip. There it goes. Not as quick as I'd like, so we weren't completely over. But we should now track towards 10.7 DME off India Lima Victor Romeo. So the DME for the ILS, which will be set to read 0 at that threshold there. You can still pick it up in a big old circle. You can see it's quite a shallow closing angle. It should be 279, we're tracking 280. Let's see if VNAV sorts that out. So as you saw earlier, there you go, 279 outbound. There it is, 279, bang on the nose. And it's going to take a little bit of time. I can stop the stopwatch. You can see 15:47, we got like 3 minutes outbound. So you can see why procedurally it's pretty inefficient to fly these things in big old jets, and that's why a nice vector to final or the direct arrival is going to be preferred, because you're just going to come straight in, nice continuous approach. Look at the amount of fuel we're burning. We're burning 2.25 tons an hour, just maintaining 185. So 10 minutes of holding is going to use a huge amount of fuel. Whereas in the descent we're doing idle with maybe 600 kilos an hour. it's still a bit stuttery. Maybe the NVIDIA settings need a little bit of work. So let's get prepped, get the throttles in the right spot. It's weird, no other traffic, no ATC. It is also, I believe the approaches here are all, you know, they're not normally level like this. The hold is usually higher. That's normally a descending segment with a level turn to intercept. But because of the airspace around here and how close we are to Manchester, if I show you on that map, you'll see Manchester is over here. I think that's, and Horden is over here. I think that is one of the reasons why it's all level. Keep everything low for the arrivals, departures. Keep it all contained. See the amount of drift there. So it is relatively unusual to have procedures that are this flat and inefficient. So yeah, 087 4 DME 1390 is going to be our check. 260 set. Our mist is straight ahead to 2.5. So 10.7 we're still waiting for. Show the coastline on here, yes. But at least we are tracking. We are basically going past Wallasey if we pop. There you go, Wallasey is there. Pop those on, but decreasing the clutter. There's the glide slope going past. So we'll see how VNAV flies this. And we are doing flap 1, 185, because as you see here, max 185 knots for the procedure. The procedure is restricted to max 220, but 185 in the hold. There's not really much point in speeding up to slow down again. So yeah, really inefficient arrival. Not so bad for the other direction. 27 is not too bad. So still a bit stuttery even though the frame rate's gone up. But certainly the forward view up to about here is good. Just going to blame the ultra wide with the added frame rate. So 10.7 DME, there's the turn starting. Seems like a pretty steep turn to be honest. Although actually, yeah, 25 standard rate. So because we are 10 miles out, I'm not going to drag it in just yet. Ideally, flap 5, once you're on the glide, sets you up quite nicely. And we'll set heading. Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting that we don't appear to be intercepting extended centre line. I just wonder if that hold has been... No, I think that turn has been drawn correctly, it's just calculated slightly incorrectly because as you see, it should be a standard rate turn all the way on. Anyway, 087, probably going to be more like 097 with that crosswind, which is only going to get more as we come in. Now I am going to arm Vorlock because we have identified, as I've said before, they're both illuminated. It just means you can deselect them. LNAV is active, Vorlock is armed. This is the only source of information. Localizer alive. Capture. The airplane's going to have to turn to make that, which is a shame because I think it could have made it anyway. But at least it's sorted itself out. Miles away. We are so far out. We're not going to be descending until 7.5 DME. So we've still got another 3 miles. So that's our 10-mile ring, which is accurate. So I feel like I've taken you guys really around the houses. What we're going to do is just update our landing speed. So that's brought everything down by a knot. Live slopes are live, so we can arm approach. So we want 7.5 and 2.5, which is looking like the correct glide slope. It is armed. Let's go flap 5. Match speed, that should start getting it back. See, the aeroplane shouldn't climb. See the airport anyway. So 4 miles, hey, that's not bad. 9 degrees of drift. So our missed approach is 2.5, so that's set. On localizer, we're on glide. A little bit stuttery. Autogen's not looking fantastic, but it's not looking terrible either. I suppose it gives a little bit more of a sense of depth once we're a bit lower. At least there's forests and trees and things in the right place. And I suppose the roads are a little bit, you know, they make the ortho stand out a bit. Power lines are pretty useful. So we wanted to see 1390, 4 DME. Bingo. Gear down. Flap 15. Match speed. So start switch is continuous, cabin secure. 4 pumps on. Recalls checked. Speed brake armed. Water brake 3. It's going to be flap 40 landing. Gear down 3 green, holding on the landing flap. 1,000 feet, stable by 500.
1,000.
So let's go. Stabilize at 25. It's going to be 138. Let's give the airplane a chance to
Approaching
trim there.
09.
Flap 40. A little bit slow, but power for speed in the latter stages. 500 stable, continue.
400. Approaching minimums. 300. Minimums.
Continue.
200.
We are clear to land. We've self-cleared.
100. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10.
Oh, that's going to
Long
be floaty.
landing. Long landing. 5,000 feet remaining.
Oh, we did not make the high-speed exit. Oh, that's needing a lot of rudder.
80 knots.
And you're braking. So I'm not doing any braking now.
2,000 remaining.
Reversers can go in. It's a lot of rudder. So, just a 90-degree turn, we need to be down to 10 knots. It's looking alright until that massive float. I'm going to blame the crosswind. Actually, can we vacate here? Yes, this is 90 degrees, isn't it? Yes. So 1 hour 12 minutes because of all the holding and all the faffing. So just need to update the ortho, get the ground textures a bit better. Maybe zoom level 18 at the airport. It's not going to make much difference, is it? 4 times the detail there, it's still pretty pixely. So, get the speed brake up. And then it's just a case of running along the panel. Off to the parking. A lot to do when it's just you. Brake temperatures aren't too bad. And where are we going to park? I don't know. To be honest, I'm not that fussed. Anywhere will do us. Terminal's down here. Trees look like they're in sort of the right place. Looks sort of tree-like, doesn't it? Yes, it looks like there's lots of trees there. So what's this, like 500 feet, and it looks relatively realistic. Autogen's not fantastic, but it's not terrible. Default airport. You know, just a few of these objects that at least make it a bit better, even though the density's not realistic. And on the ground, what's the stuttering like? I think it's a lot better. Certainly, if I'm looking at the taxi signs, it's still there a little bit of rubber banding, micro stuttering, but frame rates were pretty steady throughout, which I'm happy with. So I don't think we'd end up parking over here. Let's get the APU on. So most importantly, how was the landing? That was a 225, not terrible. Zibo's going to say it was bad. Oh, good. I thought that could have been better. 225 in the touchdown zone, but a little bit late, which is why we didn't make the exit. I think we could have done if we'd got down earlier. And we'll end up doing a right, I think, onto uniform, just onto any one of these stands. So down to 10 knots, this 90-degree turn, and it's coming into the apron. Maybe I was a bit keen. It's difficult to judge that turn. Probably should try VR one day. Not quite convinced that the graphics card could handle it at the moment. Because I think you need slightly higher frame rates than 30. But as long as we can get it consistent, that's all that matters really. I'm just going to take whatever stand this is ahead. So, APU's on the bus. Are there even any stand markings? No. Fine, just have to do it from outside. See how bad the shadows are. It's shimmery, I think, from the anti-aliasing. I still like the heat haze. I think we finally got that quite good. But like we say, it's the flying aspect that's more important. The flight model's really good. These are all sort of ever such slight niggles. Like us on stand. Terminal facade's not too bad. It looks a bit rubbish. it's got the front bit, but this one seems to be missing a side, which is a little bit of an oversight. It looks alright there. So, anyway, that's us on stand at 16:59. Brakes on. That should have been out off. It's now on standby. We got 2 blues, 1 red. Engine's dead. %, beacon off. Chocks in. Get the stairs out. And time to get the punters off. And that, ladies, gents, anyone that was watching, thank you for joining. That's us in Manchester with our first proper Vulkan beta sector, which went pretty well, I think. No crashes, no dramas, not perfect, but pretty steady and pretty good, and I think a massive improvement compared to certainly where we were, certainly where I was on the last stream, with some really awful stuttering. Yeah, looks good, runs well, even with the weather was doing pretty good. I don't know if this, you know, is it worse to have lots of clouds and have to generate all of that, or is it worse to have lots of scenery and lots of ortho and be able to see for unlimited visibility, at least 40 miles? I don't know, but that's us. We are here in Liverpool. Don't know where I'm going to fly to next, but as always, I hope you can join me. Thanks for watching if you have been. Please like, please subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. For now, take care, and see you in the future.